Hey guys, what's up? This is Casey. This is Coach Tom. This is Shot Science Overtime number 145. We're going to do what we do every week here. Or not every week, most every week at 1 p.m. Pacific time on Sundays. We're going to have a.
What's up?
This is Casey. This is Coach. Oh, technical difficulties right off the bat. Sweet. But we're going to do our live show where we have kind of an hour-long talk that we talk first about a topic that we think is going to help you guys improve your game, take you to the next level, make you just a general better basketball player. And while we're doing that, you guys are going to send us your comments and questions. Then we'll jump into answering those as soon as we finish with the topic. So make sure you're sending those our way. Make sure you're following us on all of our social media stuff so you can talk to us when we're not doing these shows on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. We're Shot Science on all of that stuff. And we're doing different things on all those different places. So just keep in mind that this is our live show. It's about an hour long or so. This is not our regular Shot Science videos. You can go check those out on our page. Okay.
Chase?
Hold on. Well, we're not there yet. So now we're going to introduce our guest for today, which is our my brother, Chase. He is wearing a pretty sweet Shot Science shirt. What's up, Chase?
Hey, guys. What's going on?
So we're going to have Chase on. He's going to talk about the topics that we talk about today. So today's topic is why having arc is important. And it's, a topic that comes up all the time when people are asking why their shots such a brick and all of those things. So why don't we talk about that just a little bit?
Well, one of the things that's important about the arc is the fact that it tends to, as your shot flattens out, it tends to make your target smaller. We could go through all of the geometry and all of that kind of stuff on it.
Well, we can talk about it a little bit.
Well, what happens as the ball is approaching the basket and the flat arc, what happens is that the basket becomes smaller. And it can only get into the back of the basket. So if Casey, put your arms up like a basket, your arms, and the ball is coming here flat, what it tends to do is the hole becomes much smaller. Yeah, the basket itself becomes smaller.
Even as you're looking at it, you can see, like, if you're looking dead on, you don't get to see much open space, available space for the ball to go. But as you turn it, you can see that it becomes more space. So the more arc it has, the more available space it sees.
Exactly. And the thing that's real important there to remember is this, is that when we have the flat arc, it usually is a basket that's only about 9.5 to 10 inches in diameter that we get the ball into. And what happens when it's that small is that we don't hit the ball as often as maybe we could. If we get more arc on the basketball, and arc that we always talk about is that we want to see that arc somewhere in the 15 to 18 foot range at the highest point of the arc. And when we get into that particular range, what we find is that as the ball is approaching the basket, we have a target that's somewhere around 15.5 to 16 inches in diameter. And normally the basket is 18 inches in diameter. And so instead of shooting at a smaller basket, 9 or 10 inches, we get to shoot one that's, I don't know what the figures are percentage-wise.
Well, okay,
it's probably 75%.
It's all about increasing your available space to put the ball in the basket.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's really, you don't even have to worry about the numbers. It's just that more space is what the ball needs to get into the basket, which is going to increase your accuracy.
Yeah.
So, Chase, what are some of your thoughts on proper arc and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it really just comes down to target size, like you guys are saying. It's really, to simplify it, it's from the angle that you're shooting at, the front of the rim. If the shot is not coming from perfectly straight above, you're going to miss the first part of the basket. So you can't make it in the first part of the basket because the ball can't stop and just drop. So it's really about creating more space by having a kind of trajectory straight on top of the basket. And we, typically don't teach to have a perfect arc where it's dropping straight down because of the energy and stuff like that it takes to get that kind of arc. You lose some of the control, but you want to get, as much of that bucket as you can as the target.
Right.
Yeah, and that is an important thing to bring up, is the fact that there is such thing as too little arc and too much.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And when it's too little, you're going to run into those problems that we just talked about, where the ball doesn't have enough available space to really be a viable shot to go in.
Yep.
But when you have too much, you're effectively shooting a longer shot because you have to put the ball through a longer, trajectory where it has to go a further distance. So then you're going to start to reach the point of diminishing returns when the ball is going to be less accurate because you're essentially shooting a deeper shot because it has to travel further.
Well, and usually when we shoot one that is really, really too high, it kind of has the shape of a bell arc like this, and it tends to be a short shot as well. It doesn't get to the basket. Another thing that comes out of the flat arc is that if we shoot a flat arc, besides the size of the basket, if we catch the rim, what happens is, and we catch it on the side, what happens is the ball will hit that and it will run around the basket, the rim, and then right out again. So one of the things that we want with a nice arc that's super important is that when we hit the basket, the rim of the basket, we want it to bound upwards. And if it bounds upwards, then what it's got is another chance for it to go in and stays around the basket. So that's a really important element of that shooting arc as well. And the thing that really is important too is that what we want to do is make sure that we get the ball so we're shooting right to the middle of that basket. We want a target that's the middle of the basket, not the back rim.
Right. So I guess let's talk about how people might notice whether they're shooting a flat shot or something that's going to be detrimental to their arc.
Yeah.
So what are some things like people might see, or if they either are watching how they shoot or they record how they shoot?
Okay. What you will notice is that when you shoot a flat shot, the ball will tend to be a long rebound. In other words, it will take and come back to you, excuse me, or it will go beyond the basket if you're shooting from the wings or the corners. And so what happens is that's a perfect read to tell you, okay, you're too flat on the arc. What you want the ball to do is when it drops down on that rim, if it hits anywhere in that rim, we want it to bound up and it stays close to the basket. And that's a great rebounding information as well.
Right. So, I mean, people need to really be their own kind of best coach or shot analyzer, because if you're just going out there and you're just shooting brick after brick after brick after brick, I mean, that's kind of on you. That's really not the best way to approach developing yourself as a player.
Yeah.
So you have to do things like watch what the ball does when it hits the rim. You have to record yourself on, everybody has phones that have video on them now anyways, so it's like you can easily record yourself and see what's going on with your shot.
Right.
So you need to do that and analyze what is going on here. Why is the shot hitting the front rim and bouncing back to me while I'm shooting this free throw? And why is my arm dipping down when I'm shooting? Why am I not finishing above my shooting eye? All of these things are super important if you want to really figure out what the heck is going on with your shot and why it's not going in as much as you may like it.
Anything on that, Chase?
Yeah, I mean, I think the rebound is not always going to be the perfect reason, because some things can happen where maybe you just barely touch the rim, but it's more of a trend. So if you're shooting 10 shots and you notice 5 or 6 of them come bounding right back out to you, what's typically because the ball is going to, when it hits the rim soundly and square, it's going to rebound in the direction that it came. So if it's coming from above, it's going to bounce up. If it's coming from flat and out, it's going to come back out to where you shot it from, but not always. It may just barely catch the rim, or may get just a piece of it where you don't get that kind of rebound. So it's really about looking at the trend of 10 shots or so and seeing what happens with those rebounds.
Yeah, one of the problems that I know that young players have is that when we have a shooting machine that has got the net at about 14 or 15 feet high, and we tell them we want them to be over that rim 2 or 3 feet in order to get an effective arc. But here's the problem: when they go away and they go home, or they go to the school, or they go to a playground to shoot, they don't have that in front of them. And so what happens is that your shot begins to flatten out just because it's more comfortable to do that. But the upshot of it is that you're creating a problem for yourself where the ball is probably not going to go in the basket nearly as often as if you get that arc up. And so it's important that we tell our students is that when you go out the gate over there and you go home to play, you've got to mentally have a picture of that net in front of you so that you get the arc that you need. And once you kind of get it down, then it doesn't change too much. Or I'm sorry, once you get it up, then it doesn't tend to change very much after that. And so it's real important for you to work on getting that arc consistent every time you shoot it.
Yeah, well, I think it's really important what Chase was saying was the fact that obviously it's not going to be probably one indicating factor that your shot is not working properly. It's going to be a lot of different inputs. And, you know, one of the things that you may notice is, okay, the ball is coming off this certain spot very, you know, frequently. Well, that would be one input that you would want to check out. Another input might be, well, I'm looking at this video and my arm is dipping down below where it should be, or you know, my elbow is out, or all these different things, or you know, maybe a coach might come up to you and say, hey, your shot's flat. That's another input. So you need to be always analyzing and aware of what's going on with your mechanics, and you know, trying to make those tweaks back to where it's going to be optimized.
Well, I think that's one key thing too in that is you can probably find 5, 6, 7 different things that are not going perfectly with your shot. Right. Even, you know, playing in college and stuff like that, I would get those times where I was just off rhythm and how my shot felt. And so there'd be a couple of things that I'd focus back in on. But if you try to focus in on too many things, like you're, you know, leaning backwards as you shoot, your waist should be back, you're, you know, the ball is coming off your 2 fingers to make sure that you have, you know, a flop, follow through, like all those things. There's so many things you can be thinking about. I would always limit it to 3 things. I'd never have more than 3 points that I'd be thinking about anytime I was practicing on my shooting, because otherwise there's just too many and you'll go overboard. So I think that's one really important thing, is pick those 3 things that you really want to focus in on to really work on, and don't worry about the other things nearly as much. I mean, if you can, you know, control them, fine, but don't put them as an active thought. And if you just really emphasize those 3 things over and over again, they'll start to become habit where you don't have to think about them, and you can add something else as one of your 3 things that's maybe more of a focus. And so the arch and the shot is one thing that I would start as one of my top first 3, because it's one of those things that can help drive a lot of the other mechanics to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's super important. Like, if you have too many things that you're trying to tackle at one time, number 1, that can be overwhelming, and number 2, that's going to be a lot of things to try to thread the needle on at one time. So, and also I would say that if you're struggling with probably more than 3 issues on your shot, you probably need to take a step back, work on getting back to the foundational elements of your shot, and maybe really work with some form shooting on the form shooting drill, and kind of slow it back down. And the other thing I wanted to say too is that I'm not saying that you should be out there during a game thinking about all of these things that are going wrong with your shot. Those are things that I think are important to address in your practice and in the off season. And when you get out on the court for games, that should be about execution. You shouldn't be thinking about too many issues with your mechanics. Those should kind of be sorted. I mean, obviously, if you're doing the same thing over and over again, you're going to be like, why the heck am I missing out the front rim every time? You might make some adjustments, but it shouldn't be something where you are, you know, out there constantly having these, you know, analyses running through your head like the Matrix or something while you're playing in a game. Like that's a good way to psych yourself out.
I think that's really a good point. One of the things that we should probably talk about and just touch on it lightly is, how do we get that arc?
Okay.
One of the things that we teach everybody is this, is that when you have the ball set, whether it's a low set, like the younger players, and sometimes the girls do that as well, or a higher set where we're up above the level of the eyes. When you shoot, you want to make sure that the elbow always elevates and finishes at a point higher than your eyes. And what happens when you do that is that gives you a pretty good arc for the shot. And so that's an important thing for you to consider if you're having trouble with the arc always being flat.
Well, that's like an easy touchstone. So if you guys are having a hard time getting your arm up and getting that high release point, that's a good way to kind of cue yourself, is saying, okay, well, I'm going to finish with my shooting side elbow above my eye level.
Well, yeah, and one of the other things, and Casey touched on this just a moment ago, is sometimes that when we shoot and we don't get that elbow elevated, or even we do and we get to the end and we pull the arm down. I mean, that's a pretty common thing that I see with lots of kids, is that the arm will pull down at the end. That's going to flatten your shot out and shorten it up. So,
well, you can see where the ball would come out where your hand releases it. So it's going to be coming out at a flatter release angle.
Right.
And that's not really what you want it to do. Right. You want it to have that nice kind of arc that's going to give it the full view of the rim when it's getting closer. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, one of the things that we talk about, and if you go watch our video on getting the right shooting arc, is that the ball, if you visualize the ball having eyes on it, so that when the ball is in flight, think about what it is seeing. And if it's coming in at that very flat trajectory, it's going to just see a little bit over that rim, and it's only going to be able to see the back side, and that front is just not available. The front side of the rim is not available. But if it comes in with some loft on it, it's going to look down and it's going to see that full rim being available for it to go in. So yeah, do we have any more comments about arc? What do you think?
I'm good with that. How about you, Chase?
Oh, that was good.
Okay, so if you guys have your questions, please send them to us. We need questions right up front, because once we get to the end, we usually don't have enough time for everybody. So if you want to send us your questions, send them to us here in the chat on this video, and we will do our best to get to everybody. Two Bros Ballin says hi with an exclamation point. Make sure that, you can also reach us on some of the other social sites. If you want to tweet us right now, we'll try to get to you.
And where are we from?
Oh, yeah. If you guys want to let us know where you're from, tell us in the chat, and we'll try to shout you out a little bit if we have enough time up front. We are here in California, in Santa Cruz. And Chase, where exactly are you?
I'm in Oklahoma.
Chase is out there in Oklahoma. So let's see here. Let me pull up some of these questions. So why don't you guys talk a little bit about a drill that maybe people can use to work on their arc?
What about you, Chase? Any drills?
I think form shooting, just to start with, is the foundational place to start. And I think, there's a lot of really good drills around, trying to work on no rim and trying to work on, form shooting drills, starting at the block, see if you can make 3 in a row without touching the rim and take a step back. Can you make 3 in a row from that next spot without touching the rim? And I think those are ones that really help with kind of getting that arc up over. And really focusing in, obviously, is the key is, you're going to be more likely to not hit the rim if you get the appropriate arc on it.
Right. So form shooting drill, probably the best one to really get started with.
Yeah, that was my call as well, Chase. I agree with you completely on that one.
Yeah, I agree too, because it's one of those that really will help you kind of focus on dialing in your mechanics instead of trying to force it by doing game speed when you're not really ready to do that.
Well, that and trying to shoot the ball from too far out when you don't have the abilities to do that yet.
Okay, Christian Gurma says, hello. What's up, Christian? This question is from 43 Sarah, who says, tips on expanding range. What drills should I be doing either on the court or in the weight room? Ooh.
Well, my thoughts on this is that using the form shooting drill, and there's different examples of it. We recommend ours, of course, but by starting at the block and then hitting the second peg or the first peg, and then the middle of the key at about 11 feet, and then the same thing on the other side. And then you return back to your starting point. That's 9 stations. We think that's really a good one.
Well, just starting in close.
Yeah, starting in close. But as you get better and more accomplished, then we take one step back, which is about 3 feet, and then we go to the second peg and right at the free throw line, and same thing on the other side. And then as you become more proficient at those distances, then we take a second step back, and pretty soon you're getting out kind of close to the 3 line on your shooting. And so it's a matter of working backwards from short distance to longer distance. And I would tell you just off the top that I'm not really crazy about using weights to be able to get yourself to be able to shoot the ball further, because usually that's an emphasis on arm and shoulder strength. And what happens there is that typically when you're generating power for your shot, you're going to take and generate most of that power from your midsection down, because that's where all the large muscles are. And the shoulders and hands, those are directional tools for you.
It's your delivery system.
Yeah, it's the delivery system. It's going to take and tell that ball where to go. And as you muscle up and try to get more power out of your shoulders and arms, you're going to find that the brick thing is going to start to show up pretty evidently.
Yeah, because you're adding tension, and that's going to affect your accuracy. I will say that shooting from deeper range is really a progression, like you were saying. So you have to start close in. You have to really master that close in. And as you step back, you master each step back, then you will be in better shape and well equipped when you get to that deeper range, because your mechanics aren't going to break down. You've done the work to really get there. Your muscle memory is going to be there. What do you think, Chase?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, just in the priority of things to work on, I'd probably put working on my range, even if it's getting to a 3-point shot at the very end of the list, because most of it's going to come from just maturity in general, just getting older, and you're going to be able to be stronger and work on those things. So there's definitely some exercises you can work on to strengthen some of those muscles. A lot of the squat type of movements, things like that are going to help. But, from a priority list, I'd much rather put ball handling and things like that. I mean, show me one high school player that's ever really made a significant difference by having range, well beyond the 3-point line. And you can't find one even at that level until you start getting into, the more elite levels of athletes. And typically they don't shoot them at very efficient rates. I mean, you can probably have a handful of maybe 2 or 3 guys, even in the NBA, that shoot beyond deep threes at any significant, percentage. With Steph Curry and Damian Lillard, I think probably the only 2 that shoot it over 30%. So,
I would totally agree, because the thing is that there's so many guys that I'm sure Chase played against and I played against that were these amazing shooters, typically from like the Midwest or middle of Utah or something like that, where they were just dead-eye shooters and they could shoot from deep range, but you could take that away from them because they didn't have all the other skills that they need to put together so that they can utilize a tool like that. And it takes time to really reach that proficiency. Also, I would say that you're talking about the weight room and things like that. Me and I know my dad too, we personally, and I'm sure Chase kind of agrees, but you'll probably get further and get more out of developing your skills than you will spending your time in the weight room. You could spend 2 hours in the weight room every day trying to make yourself a stronger, more powerful person. But what if you took most of that time and worked on developing your skills, like your ball handling skills or your shooting or your conditioning or your athleticism? Those things that are things that translate much more directly than getting in the weight room and getting yoked out,
Really?
Right?
Well, I agree and disagree. I agree in the kind of traditional sense of the weight room being, let's go do bench press and other, non-functional exercises like bicep curls and things like that. I think there really is a strong, important place for functional exercises that can really make a huge difference in your game, especially when applied to some of those drills. So things like single leg squats on an unbalanced surface, things like that are going to really help improve your game a lot. So I think when we're talking about weight room, we're not talking about, the weight room in that sense of being able to train those type of functional activities. We're talking more about, the kind of just going to push weights around. That's not going to make a significant impact for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I said, is that, functional kind of basketball specific things that translate to basketball directly, like developing your athleticism and conditioning and things, are super important. And those are things that are well spent on. Yeah. Mostly when people are saying the weight room and stuff, they're meaning how many curls should I do? How much bench press should I do? How much weight should I throw up on the squat rack? When that's not really things that translate so well to basketball, especially when you're a younger person. But when you are, when you're trying to develop like athleticism and conditioning, a program like the one that Chase does for the vertical jump videos that we have in the vertical jump handbook, those are very much kind of in line with basketball specific training and translate very well to actually, there are things that we would say, invest some time in that, that's great. But going in the weight room and trying to get, huge, that doesn't really translate as well.
I don't think so.
And your time is better spent.
I reserve this though, that I think that when your body is matured, and let's say you're late teens or you're in your early 20s, I think that is okay to get in and do more development of your upper body and your whole body using weight training.
Well, okay.
What about you on that, Chase?
Okay, go for it.
What about you, Chase?
I still think the exercises should be functional. I think, a bicep curl is never going to do anything for you in a basketball sense. It's just an aesthetic exercise, really, because how often do you ever really do that movement in, basketball? It's more about doing the movements that are going to be functional for you. I think squats are useful. I think doing squats in an unbalanced environment where you're doing single leg squats, you're doing squats on body weight squats on a Bosu ball or something like that that's going to give you some kind of unstable type of platform. I think there's, even loading that up with weight is useful when you get into that kind of sophomore, junior year in high school. But, again, it should be very functional specific to kind of multi-directional, multi-joint type of movements and not to let's sit down and do bench press.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's just what we were saying is that it has to translate. Otherwise, you're not doing it for the right reasons, and the payoff is not going to be what you are hoping for it to be. Let's see here. Let's go back to another question. We need to shorten these up a little bit. We got 3 people here, and we got opinions. So let's see. Well, here's one from Lisa Brown. She says she's 13, and she asked, "Do you think bench pressing will affect my shot or growth?" Why don't we let Chase jump on that one and have at it?
I'm 13, so I would probably not do much weights at that age, kind of from a bench pressing perspective. It's not going to have a major impact on your shooting. And then the other question was on growth.
Yeah, she was worried about growth and if it's going to affect her shot.
Yeah, I mean, it's really somewhat of a fallacy in the kind of weightlifting affecting kind of in any kind of growth. But, I mean, from the way that your musculature works, you're really not getting a whole lot of benefit at that age and doing a lot of heavy weightlifting. You're more likely to injure yourself. And that's really more of the risk is the injury, the overloading of the joints versus having any kind of like stunted growth. So I would say, it's okay to lift weights. It's okay to do things at younger ages as long as it's a safe environment. But you should be doing mostly body weight stuff anyways until you're, 14, 15, 16, unless you have somebody who's, really knows what they're doing that's kind of coaching you on that has a background in, understanding kind of what's going on there. So that's what I would say from a growth perspective, no. From a shot perspective, a lot of times after you lift weights, your shot's going to feel funny just because the muscles are fatigued. But it's not going to have a long-term impact on your shot. But again, I would focus in on body weights. Like an exercise that's better for someone who's 13 to be doing is something like, a push-up or, a one hand on a Bosu ball or some uneven surface doing push-ups. That's a little bit different than, trying to lift a bar. That's a little bit unsafe for somebody who's younger.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think the biggest issue with people that are younger is that they don't really have like they might not have a trainer. They might not know exactly what they need to be doing, and that's a great way to get hurt. And it's also, again, like you were saying, it doesn't necessarily translate directly to basketball, where doing kind of more functional movements probably is your better bet. Yeah. And again, go check out Chase's videos on the vertical jump. And there's a good program there for people, especially the younger people, because it's mostly body weight stuff. Okay, let's see here. Again, you guys, if you are out there and you want to let us know where you're from, let us know in the comments because we want to know. We're in California over here, and Chase is over in Oklahoma. So just let us know where you are, and we'll try to shout some people out. Antonio Goodwill says, "Shout me out, please." We just did. Let's see. Antonio Goodwill. Let's see here. Okay, well, let's get into another question. This one's from Christian. He says, "I'm from St. Louis. I go to a school where our 2 tallest guys are 6'4" and 6'5" now. I'm wondering if they have me playing small forward, but mainly power forward, but I'm still 6 foot. Everywhere else I'm expected to play guard. Should I still be playing post and using post moves or start playing like a point guard regardless?" Okay. I know that I have a very strong opinion on this, as I'm sure that these other guys do too. The thing is that you should be an all-around versatile player that can do everything. You should be able to post up. You should be able to step out on the perimeter. You should be able to rebound, shoot free throw, all those things, play defense. And when you step onto a team, a coach is going to have a plan and kind of a way that you fit into his plan. So if your coach is telling you that you're going to be playing small forward or power forward, that's kind of where you are going to be situated. It's not really something that's open for discussion so much when you are playing on a team. But that said, you always want to be touching on these other aspects of your game. You don't want to just think, oh, well, I'm playing the post now. I guess I'm going to forget how to shoot or forget how to play on the perimeter. You shouldn't do that, because there are going to be other settings where maybe you play in a different spot. And as you move up the different levels of basketball, you will see that, height kind of will play probably a larger factor in where you end up playing and things like that, where, maybe you grew up playing this power forward or center position, but as you got up into, maybe college ranks, they don't have too many 6'3" centers anymore. So you might have to have your ability to play more versatilely tapped into. So, I mean, what do you guys think?
Well, go ahead, Chase. You have thoughts on that?
I generally agree that just from a overall basketball player standpoint, you need to work on kind of building all of the kind of specific drills. I differ just a little bit, and I think that you should focus in on the things that are kind of specific to your skill position as kind of a primary thing. Yeah. I think you want to be able to build up on, as a post player. Your post move should be the thing that you're focused in on the most, whereas the kind of ball handling and things like that are important, but they're maybe a secondary to those core things you're always going to work on. So, I mean, that's my general take on it. Is I think there's some specificity that you should focus in on, but you should also be able to work on just kind of an overall skill set.
It was interesting. I was having lunch yesterday, and there was about 4 or 5 men and this one young boy that were sitting at the table, and the boy was probably 12. Maybe 13, and I overheard one of the fathers say to him, "So I hear you're playing power forward." Okay, and at 12 years old and being a power forward, that's something that I would find kind of objectionable, because I think the important thing is that you learn, first of all, how to dribble, how to shoot, how to pass, how to defend, and when you have all those elements pulled together, then you begin to shape yourself into maybe where you might fit in. Like Casey said a while ago, the coach is going to determine how you play, where you play, and why. Maybe you're long and you rebound well. They're not going to, and you shoot average. They're not going to put you out there facing the basket properly. They're going to put you around the basket with your back to it, so that's where you're going to play. Yeah. But you need to have the capability, because if you're at 12 years old, you may be 6'6" by the time you're 18 years old. And so you have to take and prepare yourself as a basketball player first.
Yeah, well, here
with some of that skill development for position kind of mixed in.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with everything that I said, that Chase said, that you said. I think that when we think about this, we have to think about it kind of bird's eye view, kind of the holistic approach. Of course, when you're playing on a team and you have some specific role, you're probably going to have to address things like, oh, okay, I better work on my post moves, because that's where I'm going to be playing primarily right now. I just think that in terms of a basketball player and kind of your bird's eye view of that, you need to have all of the tools, and that's going to make you more valuable for any team that you step onto. If you're trying to make a team, and a coach sees that you can do all these different things, that's going to be something that they're going to look for and they're going to want to have on their team. If you are just a role player that can only do this one thing, then that can be a real problem.
It can limit you. It'll limit you.
So yeah, but of course, there's going to be situations where you have to work on these specific things in your specific role. So just holistically, try to be as versatile a player as you possibly can. Which is why somebody like Chase, who generally played kind of like a point guard, shooting guard, maybe a small forward in most of his career, he was able to go inside and post up on guys too. He knew how to do post moves. He knows how to do post moves. He didn't just lit himself, but that just makes him more versatile and more of a deadly player, because he can do all these different things. Okay, let's get some more people here. Justin Ejama says, "I love you guys." Thanks, that's awesome. Funny username. XD says, "Shout out to Germany. What's up?" Antonio Goodwill, I think we already said hey to him, but he's in Clifton, New Jersey. Let's see. Okay, this one is from, Justin Ejama says, "Yeah, you got to work on everything in your game." That's true. Let's see here. This one is from Air Danny 23. He says, "Hey guys, I'm 17 and I don't have the biggest hands, and I find it hard to roll the ball off my fingertips on my release, and it decreases my control of the ball and limits my range. Any tips on how to improve my release?"
Well, you know, I'm always kind of amazed that people are so much concerned about their hand size as basketball players. Everybody's hands are a little bit different, and maybe you have a little bit of an advantage if your hands are big hands. But that doesn't really affect how you're going to be able to release the ball in your shot. I mean, you release that basketball pretty much the same way whether you got large hands or small hands. And the thing that I think is important that for control purposes when you shoot is to spread that thumb out so that you get a little space from the palm of your hand to the basketball. Because what happens is that you're gripping the ball with your thumb and your little finger when you get ready to shoot it. The other fingers haven't got an opposing finger opposite them that they can really grip the ball with. But that helps you to secure better control on the basketball. So,
yeah, well, I mean, Chase might have some thoughts on this too, but you know, the thing about it is that there's these many things in basketball that you have no control over, or any things in your life that you have no control over. One is your hand size, the other is your height, you know, things like that. When it comes to your hands, you know, people make these excuses up about, you know, my release isn't right because my hands aren't big enough, or I can't dunk because my hands aren't big enough, or whatever it is. But the fact of the matter is that you need to do a little bit more work and dial that stuff in, because we work with people that are, you know, little 11-year-old girls that are able to hold the ball and get the right release, and their hands are literally tiny, up to the guys that are, you know, these huge dudes that have just giant hands, and they're able to do similar things. You will be able to control the basketball with your two hands and the finger pad approach. So you have to really work on getting the ball in the right place on your hand. And if you watch our videos, we talk about that in great detail. And if you're having a hard time rolling the ball off of your fingertips, like it says here, it's probably because you have something going on with your release, which isn't so hot.
Exactly.
And I would say make sure that you go check out our video on the flop finish and really work on getting that relaxed flop over the top of your wrist. We're not snapping, we're not flicking. It's a very relaxed flop over the top of your wrist.
Which slows the ball down.
Well, why don't we, Chase, any more thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times hand size is really an excuse, but what is really kind of the issue much more is the forearm strength. And so a lot of times it has to do with kind of like your ability to control, have good motor neuron control of kind of your overall forearms and wrists. And one of the best things you can do for that is working on ball handling, right? So a lot of people haven't worked enough on ball handling, which can really help strengthen, you know, a lot of the kind of forearm muscles that help with, you know, being strong with the ball with both hands on it, being able to kind of control the ball as they go up for a rebound. I mean, all those things really are important things that are helped by things like working on ball handling. It's usually less your hand size and more kind of that, you know, forearm and grip strength.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I think that the other thing too is really learning how to use your body and release tension in your muscles too, because a lot of the time you're going from a kind of a grip on the ball where you have tension in your arms to doing like mechanics in your shooting where you have to not have tension. And, you know, a lot of people, you can see how tense they are when they shoot, and that's going to be imparted into the ball, and that's going to really affect your accuracy. So when you are working on this flop finish, you have to really learn how to let all of that tension in your forearm and your wrist and your hand go, so that you can have the right proper release. And that's one of the hardest obstacles, it seems like, for people, is to really get that down. Yeah. And you can work on that, you know, without the ball even, is just working on getting that tension out of your arm.
Yeah.
Okay, let's lightning around this a little bit, because we need to get through this in the next few minutes and hit everybody's questions, or most people's questions. Hassan Abbasi says, oh yeah, it's that guy from the vertical jump vid. Let's see here. Funny username XE says, hey, thanks for your videos, guys. I'm wondering how a shoulder cuff injury, very common, right, will influence me since I don't want to have surgery. I heard that enough shoulder training can help. Thank you. Okay, prefacing this with the fact that we are not doctors. You need to go talk to your doctor about this. I don't know if Chase has anything to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really hard not knowing what the shoulder cuff injury looks like. So the shoulder cuff, just like you explained maybe what the shoulder cuff or the, you know, rotator cuff actually does, the rotator cuff helps hold kind of the humeral head in the socket so that you have a stable shoulder joint. So when you go to shoot, if you have rotator cuff injury, there's some instability in there. So you get the head of that bone moving too much in that shoulder joint. So that can be the issue. If it's just a strain to that rotator cuff, yeah, you can work on kind of, strengthening muscles, things to better stabilize that joint. But if it's a tear in that rotator cuff, then, a lot of times that's hard to, be able to do anything other than repair it surgically. So without knowing anything about the specifics, it's hard to really talk on that. But, you can work on things like shoulder blade squeezes to really stabilize the shoulder blades in the back. There's some different movements that you can do, like internal, external rotation with your arm, which is how the shoulder blade stabilizes that, or the rotator cuff stabilizes that joint. But, again, can't talk specifics about that injury.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main point there is that there's a lot of things you can do to kind of save yourself from injury. But if you are already injured, it's probably best to go talk with a physical therapist or a doctor and get that kind of figured out.
Shooting a basketball is probably not the best thing with an injured rotator cuff.
Yeah, truly.
Overhead movements is the most kind of ill-advised with a rotator cuff injury.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that you should always take care of your injuries and fully recover and kind of get everything situated. Otherwise, it's going to become a chronic thing, and it's really going to limit you. Okay, moving on. This one is from Daquan Tanny. He's kind of calling us out here, it looks like. He says, hey, Shot Science, you claim that it's necessary to use more legs on your one motion shot for a three-point shot. Well, how do you use more legs? Because a one motion shot is about fluidity rather than leg power.
Oh, wow.
I see. We will not agree with any part of that.
No.
The fact of the matter is that any kind of shot that you take really should have connectivity, and that's kind of one of the words that we use. Connectivity is very similar in our usage to the word fluidity that you are using. Yeah. And one, people are always talking about these one motion shot and two motion shots. You don't want to have any sticking points in your shooting mechanics, because every time you do a sticking point or a stopping point, that's where you lose power, and that's where the shot becomes less fluid and less connected. So we are always talking about having this fluid connected shot, and people are calling it a one motion shot. But the fact of the matter is that, of course you're going to need more leg power as you move back.
Yep.
What is your other option? More arm power? I don't really fully understand that reasoning. So, you want to have this connected, fluid shot from your feet to your follow through. And that's really going to be how you have a repeatable, accurate shot. Chase?
I don't know anything about a one motion shot. I mean, I think, I don't know what the terminology is around that, but, essentially how you're creating power with your lower body is just a basic kinetic chain, right? It's
Yep.
basic kinematics, and the more power that you stimulate from your legs, and it's not just a one-for-one power, it's more about a chaining of that power. That's why guys like Steph Curry, who don't have the same muscle mass as like a LeBron, can create a lot of the same kind of range on their shot with the same kind of relaxation of the shot, is because they're able to chain those movements together and use the kinetic energy built in kind of the spring of muscles in the lower body to create that power kind of in the release of the ball. So, I don't know there's not any other types of movements that are going to help better kinetic chain that than having a strong fluid biomechanical movement to it. So I don't know what.
Yeah, boom, there you go. A lot of people, making up these terms and not really knowing what they're talking about. But, that's the one fluid motion shot connected is really what we like to teach people. Yeah. There should be no sticking stopping points. Okay, so let's, again, lightning round this stuff. Mobin Ahmed says, hi, what strength training would work best for a growing teen playing basketball? Body weight or weights? I'm 15. Chase, just your quick answer on that one.
Body weight if you haven't done much weight training before. So I would say get your motions down in body weight form, and then if you start to get really solid and comfortable with those, you can add weight to it under good supervision.
Okay, Johnny Damon says, I make good passes often, but I also get a lot of turnovers. How do I make the right play without forcing it and causing a turnover?
I'd say probably the biggest thing is making under control passes. A lot of times I think people try to jump and make a pass or make a one-handed pass as they're still moving. I think the biggest thing is, collect under control and deliver the ball, because it may not be there by the time you actually are collected. And then you have another opportunity to find somebody else.
Yeah, I would say get experience, and also don't panic. And like Chase was saying, take a moment before you are making these decisions to really kind of you don't need to force things or rush things.
Now, here's another element I think really comes into that a lot too, is oftentimes we telegraph what we're going to do on our pass.
Yeah, that's one too.
I watched a couple of girls' teams this past season, and I was so appalled that neither team could pass the basketball. They threw soft marshmallow passes that you could intercept if you were blind. They turned and looked and looked and looked, and then decided to throw the pass, and there was 2 or 3 people already converging on the basketball. So I think that not giving your pass away, and we use this terminology a lot because I think it really works effectively, and that is you always fake a pass to make a pass. Now, that's not 100% because there's certain situations where that doesn't work. But if I want to throw the ball in the post and I can make that fake pass out to the point guard instead, and then I throw it into the post, probably I'm not going to have so much interference with that pass. But I think looking your receiver in the eye and telegraphing everybody in the building that's what you're going to do, that's going to set you up for turnovers.
Right.
Let me go on, and I won't rant for just a moment. No, one of the things that I see in basketball today with young players is the fact that most of them don't pass the ball very well. And the reason they don't pass the ball very well is because they probably do not spend time working on that particular skill. And why? The same reason that they don't work on their ball skills. There's no reward. We shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot because the reward is there if we put the ball in the basketball, in the basket. But the thing that is really kind of, I think, a detriment to basketball today with young people is the fact they don't spend enough time on ball skills, and they don't spend enough time on just taking time to develop different passing techniques.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to see how important passing is, I mean, watch successful teams like the Warriors or the Spurs, and you'll see that ball movement really neutralizes defense.
Right,
and
they make some difficult passes in their games as well. I mean, they're complicated passes, but they practice on it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing with any of this stuff, whether it's shooting, dribbling, passing, defense, whatever. You have to get the experience and actually have yourself in those settings before you actually have to execute it in a game, so that you feel like you've actually been there and you've been in that situation. So you have to really set that stuff up. And that goes back to the 3 pillars of practice, which I can't believe have not come up today. But if you're curious about that, go check out our other videos. So let's just take a couple more questions here. But this one's from Jason Daly, who says, I find shooting from the left-hand side of the floor more comfortable than shooting on the right-hand side. Arms, elbows, feet feel misaligned on the right-hand side. Any tips, please? I guess he's a right-hander.
Anything on that, Chase?
I mean, not specifically on why they would feel misaligned on right side. I mean, maybe off the dribble stuff versus just lining up and shooting is a little bit different.
I think the problem here is that they're probably not rounding off enough when they're going up into their shot.
Right.
And if you're coming off the pass or the dribble or something like that, you need to make sure that you're getting your footwork correct. And I think all of it comes down to getting your feet where they need to be. And then it's going to be just as it doesn't matter really what side you're shooting on if you have your feet in the right place. And if you're having a hard time on one side of the floor, that probably means you need to spend a little bit more time over there as well.
Yeah, one of the things that I see an awful lot is the fact that when players who are successful, if they're right-handers, are successful from the left side of the floor, and then they go to the opposite side of the floor, is that their trailing leg lags. It doesn't come around. And that's kind of what I think Casey's getting at, is that, and so what happens is that we're shooting kind of off of our shoulder like this with our body still kind of open to the middle of the floor, whereas we want to bring that foot around so it's not lagging, still staggered, but not lagging, and that makes it easier for us to shoot from that side.
Yeah.
I see that a lot.
Let's see here. This one is from, let's see here, Adam Galecki is from Poland. He says, I've got one question. I don't know how it happened, but I have 2 other techniques of shooting. One with nice arc and good shooting percentage, and second, 2 motion with poor percentage. And I guess I lost the other part of that. But, the thing is that you shouldn't have different kinds of shooting techniques that you're using. You want to have one that you stick with. And especially if you have one that is not working for you, why don't we just excise that and work on just having the one that is working for you, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, your footwork's going to change a little bit based on the situation you're put in, but once you leave, once you go into your shot, it shouldn't be any different at all once your feet are set. So whether you are catching the ball or going off the dribble, the footwork should be a little bit different, potentially depending on what side you're coming from. But once the feet are set, it should be the same shot.
Yeah.
Okay, this one is from Daquan Tanny, and I think that this one will be a good one for Chase. He says, how do you create the lower power in the legs for the shot?
How do you create the lower power in the legs?
Yeah.
I mean, well, the lower power in the legs is really created by the kind of springing fact of kind of bounding. And then once you hit that stretch point on the muscles, you're actually creating a rebound to that. So if you think about your quads, your glutes, your hamstrings, those are the main muscles of your legs. So the quads are in the front, the glutes are kind of the butt muscles, and the hamstrings are the back of the legs. And what happens is as you make that movement downward, you're actually kind of lengthening, especially the quad muscles. So as they hit a lengthening point in your glute muscles, and once they hit kind of a lengthening point, you begin to contract back. And that kind of stretch to contract is what creates that force upward to be able to create that, the strength to be able to get those shots up. So that's why you don't want to go down and do a squat and hold it and then try to shoot, right? It's all about that recoil of down and up, being able to create more power out of it.
Right. Okay, Adam Galecki he had a follow-up on his where he said, I guess using the second version of his shot automatically, but he doesn't want to do that. He wants to learn how to do the first way without thinking about it. Well, if you want to do something without thinking about it, you have to develop the muscle memory for that shooting technique or mechanics. Right. So you have to break everything down, do the 3 pillars of practice. Here they are. Number 1, do the dialing in, kind of diligent practice using something like the form shooting drill, where you are slowing it down, really working on just putting all the pieces together. Number 2, working on the game speed, game intensity work, where you're stepping it up to the level of what you would see in a game. Maybe you have a defender step in or visualize the defender and really work on getting that up to the game speed level to execute that stuff. And then do actual game experience where you're playing in pickup games, school games, whatever, traveling team games, and getting the experience doing that stuff so that when you step into games that count, you've actually been there and done it with that kind of setting already being kind of placed upon you.
And you don't have to think about that at that time.
But it's about repetition and quality repetitions. So, if you have one way that really you want it to work for you and you want to have those at your fingertips without thinking about it, you have to do that stuff. There's no easy way around that at all. Okay, let's see. Let's just do one more question. We'll get out of here. This one is from Glow Alpha, who says, how do you persuade your coach to let you be point guard when you know you have better handles than the guard now?
Probably not going to happen. Probably the best thing that could happen is that you have an opportunity maybe to step in there and just show the coach what you can do. Coaches have very sometimes complicated or maybe sometimes uncomplicated reasons for why they do things and play players in different places. One of the things I think is really a key to being a really good coach is being able to figure out, where does this guy go? Where does he fit in what we're trying to do? How about this guy over here? How does he fit? Well, he doesn't fit too well, so he probably is going to be a sub coming off the bench. So the thing is that coaches spend a lot of time trying to figure out how they're going to use their personnel, and you probably are not going to have much success in getting him to change just because you say so.
Yeah, I think persuading your coach is probably not the best approach. Chase, I can see he wants to say something about this, but I think that you can definitely talk to your coach and have a perspective that you may want to share with them. Whether they want to hear that or not, that's kind of at your own peril to start working on or bringing up that kind of stuff. One thing never to do is to say, hey, coach, I'm better than this guy at this. that's why you should play me there.
Yeah.
That is a great way to never getting what you want.
You'll be on the bench an awful lot.
If you want to play that position, you have to play. You have to show the qualities that the coach wants to see, and that is not one of the qualities that they want to see. So, Chase, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have opportunities to persuade the coach every day, right? That's what practice is all about. That's what you have those opportunities for. So it's,
but not persuading necessarily with like arguing your point.
Sure. No, yeah, persuading it and how you're playing it. So you get opportunities to where, you know, when you pick up on defense, if there's some laxity in who you're guarding, pick that guy up and you get a chance to match up with them and show that, you know, defensively you can stop them. Or, you know, if you're a point guard on the second team, you have the opportunity to show that you can handle the ball, that you can, you know, control the second team's offense. And it begins to show pretty quickly who the better player is when you're, you know, going head to head in practice every day. So, you know, if it's a matter of, you know, playing point guard versus shooting guard, you may not have the opportunities to show those type of opportunities, but you know, maybe being more vocal as a leader, maybe doing things like that. There's lots of opportunities, I think, to constantly persuade the coach of, you know, that you should be doing something else by just showing you can do something else within the confines of what you should be doing.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's a good place to wrap everything up on. Hassan Abbasi is up here asking about some vertical jump questions and stuff. And I would just say, if you have questions on the vertical jump, Chase is your guy, and if you go watch his video on the vertical jump on our channel, then that will answer most all of your questions. And you know, he has 2 pretty in-depth videos on vertical jump, and then we also have the vertical jump handbook. So if you have questions on that, I would say go check that out, and that will probably answer your questions or give you an option to do some actual kind of work that we would suggest on that stuff.
Yeah, or just tweet me directly at Chase Curtis. I haven't used Twitter a lot lately, but it goes directly to me. So if you have a question, something on vertical jump, then more than happy to answer it.
Yeah. So that's at Chase Curtis, which is at ChaseCurtis. 2 S's on Curtis. Okay, so that's going to do it for us today, you guys. If we didn't get to your question, we're very sorry. It's not because we didn't like you. It's just because we ran out of time. Make sure that you're following us on all of our social media stuff, where we are Shot Science on basically everything. We're on Facebook, where we're doing cool things every day. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're on Snapchat. Basically anywhere. And make sure you are following us on here on YouTube, where we are Shot Science, and you can subscribe to us. Check out our tutorial channels, or tutorial videos, excuse me. And if you want to talk to us during the week, just hit us up on those spots, because we're there pretty much every day doing things. And if you can, meet us back here for another live show, maybe at 1 p.m. Pacific time on a Sunday, and we will have more for you guys. And please share that you're part of Team Shot Science. We really appreciate that. And let us know if you guys want shirts. You can see Chase and Coach Tom are wearing some shirts. Let us know if you want some. All right? So thank you guys, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks, Chase.
Yeah, thanks, Chase.
See you guys.
Curtis.